Hey guys, so now that 2020 is over, I sort of want to take a look back throughout the past year and really examine what I believe are the worst units of the past year. And so what we're going to be doing is basically taking a look at all the units that released, and this is going to be summonable Sparkings only, and sort of give love to these units that don't really get a lot of love, I guess. And just depending on when they came out, you know, how they impacted the meta. And take a lot of those points into consideration. We rank these units, but it's going to be going from you know, obviously less bad to more bad. So for example, number 5 is going to be less bad than number 1. But that's pretty much what we're going to be doing here. So without further ado, this is my list of the top 10 worst summonable Sparkings of 2020. Alright, so coming in at number 10, we have Great Saiyaman, 1 and 2 assist. Now before we even get into this unit specifically, I just sort of want to mention, obviously this video is my own opinion. I'm okay if you guys have different opinions than me. In fact, if you have different opinions than me, leave them down below, because I can already tell this is one of the more controversial takes on the list, because this unit honestly isn't that bad. If you take a look at all the units, I'm talking about, remember, this is just summonable Sparkings that released in 2020. The fact that this guy even makes the list is a testament to how powerful every single summonable Sparking that released during the year actually was. Because there are 9 worse units in this guy, but there's like 30 better ones, in my opinion. And I'm completely fine if you disagree with what I have to say. This is, like, again, open forum. You guys can, you know, comment on what I'm saying here, so I'm completely fine with that. But the reason why I have this guy at number 10, and the reason why he even makes the list in the first, well, I guess I should say, make the list in the first place, is because they didn't really do much when they came out. They mostly fit on hybrids and movies, so we'll take a look at these tags right now. But the hybrids team, back when these guys came out, they already had pretty solid readiness. They had transforming Go tanks. They had this Trunks, who's actually, you know, pretty slept on, I would say. And I believe this guy had come out like maybe like slightly after they released, or maybe it was slightly before, I don't remember, but it was around the same time frame, because these guys, the Great Saiyaman 1 and 2, they came out alongside transforming Rose Goku Black. In fact, I think Gohan was already out at that point in time, but they had the Zenkai Red Trunks too, so this team was already really red heavy, and they didn't really need another red unit. I mean, you could run you know, red green, I guess, which was fine, but again, I think in terms of a support unit, even this guy at Zenkai like 3 was a better support unit than these guys were. So on the hybrid team, they didn't really fulfill a role, or they didn't really fit that well in there. And then we take a look at the movies team. This team just sucked. Back when these guys came out, this team didn't really exist. No one really ran movies when they came out. So these guys, more so than just being a bad unit on their own, they really suffered more from the fact that the teams that they fit on didn't need them, or the meta wasn't developed to the point where they were good on their teams. Because these guys aren't really that terrible when you look at their actual kit. Supporting, you know, they have okay damage. Their ultimate hits decently hard, but they didn't really do anything to shake up the game when they came out at all. And they're just sort of like whatever sort of a unit. No one really felt, at least from what I remember, no one really felt that they were like super impactful in any way. So that's pretty much why they're 10 on my list. Let's go ahead and check out what number 9 is. Coming in at number 9, we have Yellow Sin Shenron, and this guy actually wasn't too bad when he released. He was a good defensive option for GT. But that is another reason why he's on the list at number 9, is because, as you guys know, GT really isn't good at all, because they haven't been updated in 500,000 years since the anniversary. But you take a look back throughout this guy's lifespan in the game, and he came out, and really his only main use was to be a tank, and also to, you know, sort of counteract the enemy's Rising Rush, because he has Endurance, which is a Rising Rush counter in itself, so to speak. And then he also has like the buffs that he gets from an ally or an enemy popping Rising Rush. That got nerfed because of the Rising Rush nerf. So this guy indirectly got nerfed because of the change. Something else you can talk about as well is the fact that when GT got buffed during the anniversary, you would obviously you would run Omega Shenron and the Super Saiyan 4 Goku, and then you would not run this guy as the third main unit on your team. You would pretty much just run Purple Super Saiyan 4 Goku as your main third unit. Even Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta, I would argue, is a better unit than this guy to run that GT team. So he sort of got replaced within like the first few months of him being out, on a team that really isn't that deep in terms of the roster that it has access to. And there's nothing really special about this guy other than the fact that he tanks okay. But as we've seen more and more units released that can nullify endurance, which is one of his main, one of the main ways this guy was relevant in the meta for a while, as well as the fact that he does almost next to 0 damage, especially when you're talking about a meta that is flooded like now it is with Zenkai units. This guy having no, offensive unique abilities at all besides the one that's dependent on Rising Rush, which just got nerfed. This guy's not doing anything except for taking hits, which is not what you want to be doing in this meta right now. So that's why I have him at number 9. Let's go on to number 8. Coming in at number 8, we have Green Sparking Raditz, and this guy released alongside the, the Raditz Fight Goku, as well as the LF Piccolo. That was the dual banner alongside LF Frieza and Red Bardock. But this guy suffers from like a I don't know what I want to be type of syndrome, because take a look at his first unique. He's getting a little bit of damage inflicted, he's getting a little bit of cover cut, he's getting a little bit of cure cover, and a little bit of critical rate, which it looks good on paper, but when you have these buffs that are like super spread out amongst different things, it's much worse than if he just received one buff that really focused it on something. Like if he had 80% damage inflicted and then nothing else, or he had like 60% reduced damage received and nothing else, that would be better than just like this sort of like them vomiting a bunch of stuff on the page and a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I think this structure of a buff is very bad and doesn't really accomplish much in a game like this. He also has situational buffs depending on if your enemy has certain tags or if you have certain tags, so it restricts your team building, although this is not really restrictive because Saiyan. And also being faced with the same enemy is not that difficult to do, but it's still semi-restrictive. I would say the 3 best things this unit does is he has this, which is actually pretty good. He restores his Vanish Engage by 10% upon activation of a Blast card, which if you are smart with how you use it, you can stack that up and pretty much just get your Vanish back. This, which cancels enemy buff, attribute upgrades once only, so you can use that, if you're fighting a Last Stand Gohan or Namek Goku, for example, you can remove all their buffs, and that's like a very powerful effect. And then the most important thing this guy does is his Z ability for Saiyans. He has double offensive buffs for Saiyans at 14 stars. Well, even I think it's 6. Yeah, at 6 stars he gets the double offensive buff for Saiyans, and also Saiyan Saga Z, which isn't really a team. But the main reason why I have him on this list, because honestly, looking at his kit, it's not that bad. But the main reason why he's on here is because he is a green Saiyan, and it's super, super difficult to make the Saiyan team as a non-Zenkai unit. And honestly, just even when this guy released, there weren't that many Zenkais for Saiyans, but take a look at how many ridiculous units there are on the Saiyan team. Like, look at the roster of this team. Like, Kefla, easily better than this unit. Goku Black, easily better. And yeah, I get that this guy buffs the Saiyan tag, but you wouldn't use him as a main unit. He's a bench unit. And the fact that he's a bench unit means that he's automatically not horrible, which means he would make number 8 on this list and not like number 4, 3, 2, or 1 or whatever. But he's not horrible. I think, again, the fact that this guy makes number 8 on the list for worst Sparking of 2020 just tells you how good the quality of unit that released during 2020 actually was. So that's Raditz, number 8. Let's go on to number 7. At number 7, we have transforming Super Saiyan Vegeta into Super Saiyan God Vegeta. I can already tell you right now, this is probably one of the most controversial spots on my list, and I know people are going to be upset about this, but let me just explain why I have him so high or low, on whatever you want to call it, on the list. This guy released back in January of 2020, so he barely made the cut to be on here. A few reasons why I have him so low. Number 1, he doesn't get a start of turn, or not start of turn. He doesn't get a initial damage buff when he switches into the fight. He is dependent on you drawing cards, which honestly doesn't look too bad when you couple it up with the fact that he gets card draw speed whenever an enemy switches out. But I think in practice, the enemy's not going to switch out as much against this unit because this guy doesn't do any damage when he switches in. So you switch into this guy, you hope the enemy switches out, and then you start attacking him with this guy and he does no damage, so they're like, okay, I'm not going to switch. And that just means that he doesn't end up building up this unique ability, which means he doesn't do any damage. And that's pretty much why he's not the greatest feeling unit in the game. The transformation is pretty interesting because I feel like this main ability is one of the better main abilities in the entire game. Destroys all of your cards and randomly draws 4 new ones, and it restores his own ki by 60, and that synergizes very well, obviously, with his unique ability because that's what gets him going. Drawing a full hand gets you 60% extra damage inflicted for 15 counts. Honestly, 60% damage inflicted should be what he gets just initially from switching in. It doesn't make any sense that he doesn't get a start of, like when he switches in, like he doesn't get a buff when he switches in, because that's really what you need to be doing as a unit in this current meta. I mean, he's a little bit older than most units on this list, but this is also pretty interesting. He restores his own Vanish Cage by 60% when he evades, so that is one of the better effects that he has as well, but this guy doesn't really do anything other than that. Like, he can combo for a long time because of this. But other than that, it's kind of just like whatever. And then the other reason why I have him on this list, it's such a high, I guess 7 is pretty bad. Back when this guy released in January 2020, this whole team was pretty much strike-based, and this guy's obviously a blast-based unit. You can take a look. He's a range type. He has way higher blast attack than strike attack. I mean, you're talking, this guy was the main melee unit on your team. You had the Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan LF Vegeta. You had the purple Trunks, who was on the team. You had this red Vegeta, who honestly wasn't terrible. You had the yellow God Vegeta. And the only really blast-oriented unit you had on this team for Vegeta family was the Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta. Obviously very good back then, but this team was very, very predominantly strike-based. So he didn't really fit on the team when he came out, and he certainly didn't age well. So that's why I have him so low. I assume most people are going to disagree with this, but that's fine. Let me know down below if you disagree. And we'll move on to number 6. All right, number 6, we have Broly and Chilai Assist. This is a weird unit. This guy released alongside the yellow transforming Vegito. And this guy didn't really provide much to the game. I mean, he wasn't even on the girls tag when he released, so he was really only on Frieza Force as well as Saga from the movies. No one really used this guy in Frieza Force. He was okay on there, he wasn't great, but his team that you were meant to run him on, quote unquote, is Saga from the movies. So taking a look at what he does, this whole entire kit, he doesn't really do much. He does damage. That's it. His strike beat stick is what he is. He has some gimmicks where he steals Dragon Balls. His green card can do some pretty interesting things, but it's not really... he doesn't really do anything else besides damage that's worth mentioning. This was sort of the, I guess, arc of the game, or meta of the game, where the Gohan Bojack movies meta was beginning to fall off. Because keep in mind, they were dominant for like months and months and months. And, you know, around this time is where they started to show their age, and people weren't really scared of Gohan locking them in and green carding them as much as they used to. So the fact that this guy came out, I believe, in March of 2020, which was like 5 or so months after Gohan and Bojack came out. So sort of just unfortunate timing for him. But again, doesn't really provide much for the team. Zenkai Broly, obviously way better than the Broly and Chilai Assist, but obviously most people don't have him at Zenkai 7, especially back then before the revamp of the Zenkai banners. You could even argue this Blue Gogeta. I would say this Blue Gogeta is probably a better unit than Broly and Chilai. So him just being the main blue on this team was better. This Blue Vegeta down here, obviously also better than the Broly and Chilai Assist. So they're competing with units on their own team that are better. And then on Frieza Force, I mean, that team wasn't really that good back then either. Again, this unit doesn't really do much other than hit hard, right? You switch out a bunch with them, they stack up this buff. You have to switch out with them 4 times before that becomes, you know, a thing that actually matters. Well, I mean, to get the max buff, right? But, I mean, again, this unit doesn't really do much besides damage, and that's pretty much where they're at. And then in addition to that, their Z ability is only one, I think it's Strike Attack. Yeah, it's just Strike Attack to Frieza Force and Saga from the movies. It's not that impactful at all. So this unit kind of just existed as the first assist unit. That's what they'll be remembered as, but nothing really more than that at all. Okay, this is going to be another one that people are not going to like too much, but Green Gogeta, I guess Green Super Gogeta, is coming in at number 5 on the list of worst Sparkings of 2020. This guy was bad. This guy was... I was one of the only ones to really talk about how bad this guy was, I think, when he first came out. I know some of the people definitely did, but I was very vocal about how bad this guy was. Well, about how bad I thought he was. Take a look at his kit. It's very apparent why he's not great. He gets no damage in general for swapping it. It takes 40 counts for him to get damage, and he gets 50%, which is good, but it's not like great. Units nowadays get like 80% just for switching in. No restrictions. They just switch in, they get 80% damage inflicted. This guy needs 40 counts to get 50% damage. We're working up by 20% is... Sure, it's fine, but it's nothing crazy. This is good. Card draw speed by 1 level is good, but the restriction is way too high. 40 counts to do this? This is not. This is like a start of turn, or a entering the battlefield buff that you should get instantly when the battle starts. So this unique essentially does nothing for the first, you know, main part of the battle. Then the second unique is specifically against transforming warriors. Let's look at the Transforming Warrior tag. He gets 30% damage inflicted against Transforming Warriors. It's, again, it's okay. Like, this list of characters is like Frieza's and, you know, Janemba and like Bojack, and that's it. That's pretty much the whole tag. And then he also gets, buffs based on how many battle members are alive. But this is specifically only blast damage. I don't know. Like, yeah, he gets 50% blast damage when he enters and -5 to blast arts cost when all the members are alive. This should be stacked on top of this, because he gets 50% blast damage, but that's not general damage. Like, he should be getting this general damage buff at the start of the battle alongside this. And even then, he would be okay. Like, he has no defense at all. He has, the blue card is okay, because you can pair this up alongside this, the main ability, which gives you 100% damage to the next special move. You get 50 ki. It is okay main ability. It's actually not bad, especially when you pair up alongside the fact that he gets more damage for using the blue card. The green card is, it's okay. I mean, immobilizing the enemy is fine, but it's pretty difficult to land, I would say. I mean, it's not horrible to land, but this does not provide the rewards I would like to see for actually landing this green card. And then he only buffs one stat for Sagas in the Movies and Fusion Warrior, Blast Attack. By the way, when this guy released, I believe he also released back in January 2020. Sagas in the Movies, very, very heavily strike-based team that didn't really care about Blast Attack whatsoever, so kind of a useless C ability. And then Fusion Warrior, I already pulled it up here. Fusion Warrior, again, a team that never cared about blast damage at all. Even still to this day, they don't really care about blasts. You had Super Vegeta at the time, who was strike-based. You had this Red Vegeta at the time, who was also kind of strike-based. Red Gogeta was sort of falling off at this point in time, but he was also strike-based. This guy kind of cared about blasts, but he didn't really care if it was strike or, but he's kind of like, he can go either way. But I mean, again, this team did not really particularly care about blast damage. So this guy being the first sort of blast-oriented unit for both Sagas and Movies and Fusions, and then pairing that up alongside the fact that he doesn't get any entering the battlefield buffs for just general damage other than this blast damage one, this guy really didn't do anything at all. He didn't accomplish anything. He accomplished nothing when he came out. Janemba completely, the red Janemba, who this guy came out alongside, completely overshadowed him. And for him being a super Gogeta, pretty underwhelming, I would say, for sure. Coming in at number 3, we have Green Sparking Baby Vegeta. This guy released alongside the Yellow Sin Shenron we talked about earlier, so that banner was really bad. Again, the main thing this guy has going for him is that he was like the support unit for GT. But again, GT, that kind of tells you why he's on this list at number 4. Let's take a look at what he does. So this main ability, it looks okay in practice because it's doing a lot. 50% more damage received for 20 counts is pretty annoying. All this stuff is very annoying. But you know what else it does? It's only the enemy that's currently switched in. So you know what happens when you use this main ability? The enemy switches out, and that's it. Over. Buff over. That's it. This should have been all enemies, and then this would have been way more annoying. This would have made this guy way better. But the fact that it's only on the currently switched in enemy, they just switch out. Congratulations, you just wasted your main ability. So the fact that he needs a Saiyan or Tag GT character other than this character as a battle member is really not that bad. But this is actually probably one of the better things he can do, is he gets card draw speed for switching in. Only for 10 counts, which is a little bit low, I would say. And then 30% damage, again, is not really something that you should be like celebrating. This is fodder, requiring bleed or heavy bleed. Why would you even want this guy to require that? Then this down here, this is situational against Vegeta family, this is situational against character Goku. This is the second good thing he does, which is, I would say this is probably easily the best thing he does. And this is why he's a support unit. He's a support type unit up here. He gives ki, 30 ki, and 30% damage inflicted for 15 counts when he switches to standby, which is actually quite good. This is the only thing this guy does that is even remotely good, besides having card draw speed for 10 counts. That's it. His whole role is to do this. Right? You compare that to somebody like Kid Goku, Zenkai Kid Goku, who does something similar to this, but has endurance, has card draw speed, has an ultimate, has high stats. He's free. Like Kid Goku just blows this guy out of the water, and they're both in the same tag Saiyan. So you would never, ever, ever run this guy over someone like Zenkai Kid Goku on GT. You just don't run the team GT. So it's just, this guy's literally just useless almost. This green card is actually okay. Restoring 1 health by 10% and ki by 30 is not bad for a green card. And then he holds double bleed because that's what synergizes with this, but even still, it's kind of just like, I don't understand why they even put that into his kit. He also only buffs one stat with strike attack. It's not even that high of a buff. At 14 stars, 32% is not great. GT and Sans, not what they really needed at all. This guy, I assume most people would agree with my placing of him at number 4. But once we start getting into the top 3, I think the top 3 are pretty pretty big shoo-ins for like separate. They separate from the rest of the other 7, I think, pretty heavily. And the top 3 units on this list are pretty bad. Okay, here we go. Top 3. We have at number 3, First Form Sparking Green Cell. This guy came out alongside the red Heat Dome Trunks right before the 2nd year anniversary came out. This guy was very bad and still is. So his 3 tags obviously are Androids, Future, and Regen, but back then Androids wasn't a team. You never saw Androids. Zenkai 18 didn't exist, Zenkai 16 didn't exist, the red Cell didn't exist, the red Zenkai Cell didn't exist, so Androids got mega buffed after the 2nd anniversary, but back right before the 2nd anniversary, they had nobody on their team. No one. You never saw this team ever. So this is already just, I'm not even going to consider that. This guy, the only thing this guy even did that was remotely good was his main ability was actually quite decent. He got 100% Vanishing Gauge restoration, and then he got extra blast damage, and then 15 to own blast arts cost reduction is actually pretty good. That's it. Everything else sucks. He, whenever the enemy switched, he got a buff, which is honestly, this is a pretty bad buff for enemy switching out. He didn't do any damage to begin with, so there's no point for the enemy even to switch out, so he's never going to get this anyway. Gradually restoring on health for every count for 60 counts is fine, but it's not good. And then he actually required timer counts to last before he got any buffs at all. I don't know, why did they even do this? Why is 3 counts necessary for a 50% damage inflicted buff? This should have been instant. This should have been, as soon as he enters the battlefield, he gets 50% damage inflicted. This should have been 3 counts. This should have been 6 counts. That would have been way better for this guy. Drawing a special arts card, a green card after 6 counts, that's kind of just like, you're hardly ever going to make 6 counts because this guy's so bad. And then 12 counts, you're never, ever going to see this. Unless you chain together a bunch of green cards and intentionally stall the game out, it's just never going to happen. His green card also, like his whole kit is based around his green card, which is okay. He has blast armor on it. He, reducing ki by 50 on the green card, I don't really think is that impactful. This is pretty good though, and then the health restoration and key recovery is okay as well, but what this really should have done is this really should have let you just combo with any arts card, because just comboable with special move arts is, it's fine, but it's not great. So overall, this guy really doesn't do anything. Didn't fit on regen at all, because Buhan was way better than him, I would argue, and even Zenkai 1 Fat Buu was better than him, I would say, so no real point to really use him on this team. And then on Future, I would say Mai is a better unit than this Cell. I would say this LF Vegeta was better than this Cell. So this guy really didn't have a team to be used on that like really needed a green, Future or Regen or even Android's unit. Never really saw play in any team, and kind of just like a lost in time unit that's never really seen play anywhere. We have everybody's favorite Sparking at number 2, Red Pycon, and I'm gonna assume most people are pretty surprised this guy is not number 1, but you'll see why. Pycon, probably the most disappointing release ever in this game, I would say. He's up there. Probably for me, he's probably the most disappointing release ever. I have no idea why they released him when they did. This guy released like inside the 2nd year anniversary, right after Vegeta Blue released, and Vegeta Blue was literally ran on every team. You queue up in PvP, you had like a 98% chance to fight a Vegeta Blue. So the fact that this Red Pycon released with Vegeta Blue, and he has no defense, like his defenses are horrible, even after transformation, they're not that good. Transforming gets 30% damage inflicted, fine. This is like a laughable unique ability. 20 counts, he gets 20% damage inflicted, and this doesn't matter either. The damage reduction by 30%. 30% is like kind of negligible. And then he gets buffed depending on the colors of his teammates. It's fine. His Z ability, he buffs red and green. Actually, this is probably the best part about him, because he contributes to the red-red-green meta. Blast attack and defense double buff. It's a pretty nice Z ability. That's the only thing he's good at, is buffing that pretty niche team, I would say. Green card sucks, pretty much. I mean, it's okay, but it's nothing crazy before he transforms. This is kind of just whatever. he transforms. He actually becomes a little better. So, you know, inflicts enemies attribute upgrade, attribute downgrade, 30% of damage received, and then this. Cancels enemy attribute upgrades is fine. That's pretty much the only usage that he has when he transforms, other than the fact that he has this one-time use on his green card where he reduces the enemy's vanishing age to 0%, which is pretty nice, but you just switch out. If you get hit by that, guess what? If you're the enemy, you just switch out. But this guy doesn't really do anything. He gets one shot by Vegeta Blue. That's what he did when he came out. And then obviously he doesn't really do anything else. The biggest thing about why this guy's number 2 on the list and not higher, I'm saying like not like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This right here. He has 0 teams. He doesn't have a single team. His only team is Otherworld Warriors. I guess you could say powerful opponent. No one would use him on powerful opponent. I wouldn't even use Otherworld Warriors. This is the whole team, by the way. So his only team that's even remotely viable is Red, Green. But like there's 500 better red units in the game than him. So like I don't know why it doesn't make any sense. Like this is the most useless release ever of a character. I don't know. Let's just move on to number 1. Moving on to number 1, we have Blue Sparking Gotenks Absorbed Super Boo. Now this guy is probably, you know, he's up there with Pycon in terms of one of the most disappointing releases for a unit I've ever seen in this game's history by far. They did, and I'm just going to say this directly to the camera, they did a horrible job with this unit. Horrible. You could take a look at like his main ability and stuff. He does damage. That's it. That's it. Just 50% damage inflicted. This other stuff doesn't matter. By the way, this is all cancelable stuff. It's not non-cancelable. This is non-cancelable, which is fine. He gets 50% damage inflicted, some cost reduction, and then this fodder ability. And then he gets this, which can be canceled if you hit him with an attack. Which, why does that exist? And then this is also fodder. He has no defense at all, other than this, which doesn't matter. He gets literally one combo by like any top tier green unit in the game. On regen, which is not an offensively based team back when this guy came out. This is the only, I would argue, the only usable thing this guy can do is cancel enemy attribute upgrades once with his blue card. But you have to land the blue card, which is not super easy to do because it doesn't even have blast armor on it. And then, you know, depending on who you're fighting against, it might not even take away their buffs because they might not be cancelable. This is like a really not great green card, I would argue. And then his Z ability is Blast Attack for regen, which is not a blast-based team. And then he does buff Blast defense for powerful opponents, so it kind of does fit in a little bit with the regen tag because a lot of the regen units are also on powerful opponent. So not like a terrible Z ability, but I would argue Pycon's Z ability is better than this. Pycon also does do the same thing this guy does on his blue card with his main ability when he transforms, so that's much easier to land. And then Pycon does have that one use of the green card where it reduces vanish meter, so at least it forces a switch. This guy doesn't do anything. His damage, honestly, is very bad. I used him recently to test him out, just to go back and visit him. He doesn't really do any damage. He takes so much damage. He doesn't fit well on the team he's on regen, because this is his only team. I mean, I guess you could use him on powerful opponent. He's not really great there either. Who are you using him with here? Like Piccolo, Demon King Piccolo? Like who? He doesn't fit well anywhere. He doesn't do damage. He doesn't tank. He doesn't do anything. This is actually like the most useless unit they ever released in this game, I would say, for 2020, and that's why he is on this list at number 1. Even worse, I would say, than Pycon, because at least Pycon, again, Z ability is semi-useful. His main ability, once he transforms, can reduce buffs one time only. And then his green card can also obviously reduce vanish to 0% one time only. So Pycon, I would argue, is more useful than this guy. So it's sad, but unfortunately our boy Bootanks did not receive the love that he deserves, I would argue. So hopefully we get a better one in the future. But you guys let me know down below if you guys agree with this list or not. I assume most people are not going to agree with the full list, which is fine. Just let me know down below what you think. Hope you guys enjoyed regardless, and I will see you all in the next one.